This is the 2024 Acura Integra Type S. And this is the most expensive Integra ever, starting at about $52,000. This one's almost $53,000, so there's a lot to talk about there. But first, let's go for a drive. This is my favorite place to test a car like this. You do get a little wheel hop sometimes if you're on it and you apply full torque at the higher end of the rev band. But what I really like about this car is the fact that it is so playful. Turn-in is really very, very good. It is very crisp. And everything about this car is really, really tight. I think the best analogy I can draw is it's sort of like the surface, the skin of a drum. You can push on it and you get a little bit of motion, but not that much. But you still have some compliance. So that's what this car, in my mind, is really all about. It's really about having a car that is tight, it's taut, it's definitely a sports car. This really is not so much of a luxury car, in my opinion. It is just really responsive, it's really fun to drive. There's the motor. Now we do get a little bit of rev hang from time to time when you're on it and you're going full throttle and you shift gears, and yes, it is due to emissions. Go ahead and fight me on that. But this car has really got the character and it's got the goods. Like, we're hoofing it around this corner here and it just sticks and sticks and sticks. And the steering is very, very good here too. This is pretty classic Honda / Acura steering. They have pretty much, in my opinion, some of the best steering in the business. All right, let's talk about this motor. 2-liter turbo. Revs out to about 7,000 RPM, which is pretty nice. They've revised the turbo for this model year compared to the last one, and it's just more responsive. The tuning is better in here. It really doesn't have much turbo lag. Yes, it just sticks and goes. And the thing is pretty quick. Now, it's not as quick as a Supra, for example, which is in the same price class, but this thing is really quick for a four-door family sedan that you can, wow, that guy was on the wrong side of the road. Four-door family sedan that you can just hoof around corners like this. Now, one thing that makes these cars so excellent is the manual transmission, and this is the only way that this car comes. You can only get it in a manual, and that's because Honda / Acura does not have an automatic that can handle this amount of torque going to the front wheels. And besides, this is an excellent manual transmission. I love driving this manual. It is such a joy. It is one of the best in the business. It is snick, snick, snick. The ratios are pretty good in here. Maybe a little bit tall, but they're pretty good. But the shift action itself is really good. It's really tight. It's really precise. There's no sloppiness at all in here. It feels like you've got a really direct connection to the transmission. My only complaint, I do like the little wrapping on the knob here. My only complaint is it has the stitching on the back of it, which sort of, I wouldn't say cuts into your hand, but you can sort of feel it in the palm of your hand. Braking in here is really good. The pedal's really firm. Calipers are doing their job. I don't feel like I'm going to have any issue at all. There is the slightest hint of turbo lag when you're sort of on and off the throttle like I am. In a canyon like this, not really a big deal. My sort of one complaint about the driving experience overall is the exhaust note is kind of muted. It's definitely not as aggressive sounding as the Civic Type R, in my opinion. It's a little bit uninteresting. But everything that this car does is just so competent, basically. Now you can kind of ham-hand it a little bit there. You will get some understeer if you push it too hard and you don't really know what you're doing. My other very minor complaint is there is a little bit of torque steer in here when you're going over a bumpy surface and you're applying a fair bit of throttle. The wheels will move around a little bit, but they have done such an amazing job at minimizing the torque steer that it is essentially a non-issue. This is a really good handling car, and it is really, really fun to drive in the canyons on a morning like this too. And I've also driven this in heavy traffic, and where you're sitting and just shifting and going out of first, second gear, and it is nice and compliant. So let's talk about the adaptive dampers and the different ride mode that you get in here. So right now I'm in Sport, and it starts with Comfort. You got Sport and you got Sport Plus, and then you've got Individual. And compared with the Civic Type R, the range of adjustment that you got in here is in a narrower band. So there is not that much difference between Comfort and Sport Plus in terms of the damping. Yes, Sport Plus does firm up the shocks a little bit. You get a little bit less sort of primary motion, but it's not that huge a difference. And that sort of is in keeping with the brand's adherence to a little bit more of a luxury kind of vibe. But I will say this is not a luxury car really at all. It has a little bit of luxury in the interior, but that's not what this car is all about. This really adheres to the old Integra ethos, which is let's base it off the Civic and let's build it up a little bit and make it a little bit nicer, a little bit more luxury in certain areas, but we're not going to make it a full-on luxury car. That's not what the Integra was ever really about. This is sort of in the RSX vein of things. My dad had an Integra GSR in the 90s. It was a 92, and it had nicer seats than the base Civic for sure. Had a great shifter, but it was not a luxury car in any sense. Now we've come a long way in those last 30 years, and there is a lot more luxury in here than we've had in Civics in the past. The interior has a really nice kind of upscale vibe. I really like these red seats with these ultra suede inserts. The ultra suede is really grippy in corners, unlike traditional leather all the way around. You have this red accent piece going around the passenger side, and it just does sort of a nice impression. Now, it's not a full-on luxury interior. Acura has always been sort of a step above the Civic, but it really does have a sort of a very nice vibe to it, and it is a very quality interior, typical of Honda and Acura. The driver's seat is powered, the passenger seat is not. You've got these very nice physical HVAC controls. The center display is very easy to use. It is quite responsive, and the driver display is bright. The black levels are really good. It's highly configurable, and the steering wheel has a nice leather grip to it. The ELS sound system is a really big step up from the Civic. It has a subwoofer in the trunk, a total of 16 speakers. It sounds natural. There's a nice transparency to it. It's very adjustable. It's definitely one of the better sound systems I've heard at this price point. The back seat is quite large, actually. You've got a lot of knee room. You've got really good headroom. I'm 5'9". There is no center armrest, but you do have cup holders in the middle of the seats. Now, being a hatchback, it is very practical, and the trunk area is massive, and you've got a 60/40 folding split rear seat. When the Integra debuted, there was a lot of controversy over the design, but with the Type S with this wide body, most people seem to really like the style of this. I spoke with a former Integra owner at a car meet recently.
I thought I was gonna hate it because when I saw it and it got revealed, I was like, oh, this is kind of lame. And then now when I see it in person, I actually really like it. And I didn't know that it had a lot of like all that functional stuff. I didn't know it had like the big brakes or the carbon splitter and the little over fender in the rear. So I really like it, actually.
You got pretty big fender flares over these 265 section 19-inch tires. They are Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, and they are very grippy, and they definitely make a little bit of road noise. They also contribute to a fairly firm ride. Other differences between the regular Integra is you've got this air extractor on the hood, you've got this lower valence, you've got a triple exhaust, which sort of mirrors the Type R, you've got this rear diffuser, and this very nice carbon fiber wing. Overall, it looks pretty aggressive, but a little bit more subdued than the Type R because you don't have the big crazy wing in the back. So I purchased a Uniden R7 recently, and the reason I purchased the Uniden R7 is two things. It has really good detection, it gives you really good long-range alerts, it's very good at rejecting falses, and it doesn't hook up to your phone. You don't need to run it with an app. If you guys are interested in something like this, I got a link down below to my Amazon store. Let's get back to the video. So I've got it in comfort mode now, and yes, there is a little bit more body motion, but I've also got more compliance too. And on a really bad surface, a bumpy canyon road like this, it's actually kind of where I want to leave it. Yeah, I get a little bit of float, but it's not like it's removing any amount of control from the vehicle. Again, these dampers are active, so it's going to basically firm up in the corners when it needs to. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Everything about this car is just well thought out and well put together. And I'm amazed at how well this thing handles for a 3,200 pound four-door passenger car where you can put your family in, you can take them camping on weekends, you can commute during the week, you can go to the track in this thing on weekends without any problem at all. The rev matching in here is really good, the automatic rev matching. It's a little bit of a pain to turn it on and off. You gotta go through the menu structure to find that. But I've got very few complaints about this car at all. It is highly competent at doing pretty much everything you want it to do on a nice morning run like this. Now, between the Civic Type R and this car, the seats are a little bit nicer in here. I've got some ultra suede material down the center, but they're not quite as good in corners. They don't quite have the lateral support that the Civic Type R does. I've got a power seat on the driver's side. On the passenger side, it's just a manual seat. And this car inspires so much confidence when you're driving it quickly in the canyons. These tires are very sticky. I drive a lot of different cars, and when I get in a Honda product, I'm always reminded of what good steering feels like at this price point. Honda has spent a lot of time making sure that there is the right weight and a decent amount of feedback in the steering system. It is much better than most cars I've driven at this price point. In fact, pretty much at any price point, they really do a good job. At the different levels, so right now I'm a Sport. Let's move up to Sport Plus. And the steering gets heavier. Now, I'm not sure there's more information, but there is more weight. But it feels good. There's less boost in here. And there is a lot of information coming through the wheel, which I don't find in some other manufacturers' steering systems. And I really like it. It's very direct. And I talk about steering a lot because steering is one of the primary methods for which you're getting information about what is going on with your drive and your level of grip and everything that has to do with getting around a corner. And getting that information, communication to your fingertips, your palms, is really important for inspiring confidence. And that is one of the reasons why this car inspires so much confidence. So with that, let's head back and I'll give you my thoughts. The big question is this car really worth $53,000? Because that is a lot of money for an Integra, and this makes it the most expensive Integra Type S ever. This is a little bit elevated compared to the Civic Type R. You are getting some more stuff in here for your additional $7,000, $8,000. And if you can manage to find one of these with minimal dealer markup, I think the premium you're going to pay over the Civic Type R actually is completely worth it. Now, dealers vary a lot, but it is possible to find these for sometimes with less markup. Zygreen just bought one for I think only $1,000 over a sticker, which is pretty good. I don't know how many of these they're going to be bringing into the country compared to the Civic Type R, and it's just going to be a difficult thing. But yeah, this car is fantastic, but there is some competition. The BMW M235i xDrive is pretty close in price, so is the Audi S3, and those cars give you different experiences, but this is more on the performance side of those. And if you're the enthusiast that I am, and you want something that is sort of more on that side of the spectrum, this car is it. There's really not much like it. And this is relatively light at around 3,200 pounds for a four-door sedan. In my opinion, that's pretty impressive. It's great to see the Integra Type S back on our shores after such a long absence. I think the main competition really is the Acura TLX Type S. Now that is a heavier car, but it has a lot more power, a lot more torque, and all-wheel drive. So if you're looking for a more luxury experience, that's definitely something to consider. But if you want a focused driving experience with a manual transmission that is sharp, this is pretty much it, and in my mind, this is really close to top of the class in its category. My name is Eric. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.